Hey everyone, this is RoboJack. This is part 3 of a series of out-of-bounds tutorial videos for Metroid Prime 2. So in this video I'm going to talk about how to transition between rooms, so to get from one room to another while you're out of bounds. In order to do that, what you have to do is you have to get to the door that connects the room you're in to the room you want to get to. So this door right here connects to the next room. So you want to get up to the door, and I'm going to ether jump to get up there. Alright, I should be high enough to jump to the door. Alright, so now I am at the door that connects to the next room. So what you usually, all you need to do, transition to the next room, is stand on the door and then move just to the side a little bit, and then jump. So now the room is loaded. Now that the room is loaded, the game thinks that I'm in bioenergy production, because that's the door that I jumped on. Because if you look at the connection right here, there's actually two doors. There's one on the right and one on the left. So if I jump on the right door, the game now thinks I'm in save station A. So depending on which door you've jumped on most recently, that's what room the game thinks that you're in. So I can jump on the left door again, and now it thinks I'm in this room. So sometimes in order to transition to a room, the area on top of the doors is not actually standable, and you can't actually transition it that way. So sometimes you have to touch the side of the door or even the bottom of the door to transition it, but most of the time you can jump on the top. So in Echoes, the game will only load usually two rooms at a time. It's usually the room that you're in and the room that you're closest to, basically. So right now the game has bioenergy production loaded, the room that I'm standing on top of right now. I'm on top of the room's box. And the other room that's loaded, usually, like I said, is the one you're closest to. So the room right past this door should be loaded. Now, to tell if something is loaded, if a room is loaded, all you have to do is just fall into the door. And then just jump on the side of it, or to the side of the door, like I said earlier. Okay, so the room shows up. That means it's loaded. So there are actually two parts of rooms that can be, or that need to be loaded for you to actually go through that room. There are the visual aspects of the room and then the physical aspects. So the physical aspects of this room were loaded when I was still on the ceiling of the previous room, but the visuals were not. In order to load the visuals, I had to jump on the door to make the stuff show up. The physical aspects were loaded because I was close. It was the closest door to me in the room that I was in bioenergy production. I was closest to that door, and so the game loaded it. Now, that's not always the case. Certain rooms will not load unless you pass a specific point in the previous room to load the next room. Basically, there are two different types of load triggers, is what they're called. One of them is a specific location that you have to touch physically to load the next room. Another one is a proximity load, which just means it's an area, like a box, a 3D box, that if you touch that area, the game will load the next room. So right now, the room beyond that door is loaded. The easiest way to tell is, you don't even have to actually touch the door. You can just shoot in front of the door, and if your bullet disappears like that, your bullet disappears when it's in front of the door, that means that room is loaded. And also, if you look at your radar, you can tell that there are enemies in the next room. That also means that room is loaded. And that room loads by proximity load, because I haven't actually touched anything in that area, and it still has loaded the room. So the room over here, connected to that door right there, is not loaded, and the way I can tell, once again, is just by shooting in front of the door. You notice my bullet just keeps going into the darkness. It doesn't disappear right when it hits the door. That's because that room's not loaded. Now, if I walk over there, that room will load, and the other room will unload, because it's a proximity load. So if I walk over here, see, now I just started falling. I didn't morph or anything, and I automatically fell. It's because that room started loading, because I touched the proximity area for it to load. Now I can just jump, and now the visuals are loaded. The physical aspects loaded as soon as I touched the proximity and I started to fall, but the visuals loaded once I touched the door. That's a proximity load. Not all rooms in the game have that. Most do. Most do have proximity loads, but some rooms require or have specific location load triggers that you have to touch to load the next room, and I will show that next. So this room in Temple Grounds has a specific location load trigger. So if I want to load this room over here, connected to this door, first thing I can do is to check if it's already loaded. I can just shoot in front of the door. Alright, so my bullets go past it, so that means the room is not loaded. So normally I would want to get up to the door and jump on the other side of the left side of the door to load the next room. So if I do that, I go to the left a little bit and I jump. Notice how nothing's happening. It's because I have the room has not loaded yet. The physical aspects of the room have not loaded yet, or the visual aspects. Because there's a specific location in this room I have to touch in order to load that next room. It's not a proximity load, it's a specific location. So if I go back over in this direction, and I get to... There's a specific spot that you pass. It's right about here, I think. Yeah, so right here. If I touch this spot, the room over there should now be loaded. So if I jump back to the door, the physical aspects should be loaded. Remember, the visual aspects never load unless you touch the door. So if I go back over here and I jump on the left side... Oh, see, it's still not loading. I must not have hit the specific location. It could take some tries to figure out where the exact location is of the load trigger. But it depends on which room you're talking about, too. Alright, I should have touched it by now. Now if I just go back to the door... There we go. So now the visual aspects have loaded. Because the physical aspects didn't load until I hit that specific spot in the tunnel in this room. So let's say I wanted to load this room without touching the load trigger. So for example, if you come over here, jump on the side, the room's not loading. It's because you haven't touched the load trigger. And your bullets just keep going, so the room's not loaded. There is an alternative way to load rooms without touching the load trigger. So what you would do is you just shoot the door so that the little shield goes away, and then you jump down to the side of the door and then back up. So like that, and then jump back up. And then wait a few seconds, and the room should load. If you jump after a few seconds, there we go. This time the room loaded, even though I didn't touch the load trigger. That's called force loading a room. You're basically forcing the game to load the room because you shot the door. That usually works, but you have to be careful because sometimes the game will crash, and I will actually show that here. So for example, if I wanted to load the room that's behind that door, or if I wanted to force load it, so I would, well, you can first tell that the room is not loaded as my bullets are going through, and jumping on the door does nothing. So if I want to force load this room, sometimes it won't go so well, and I'll show what happens. So if I wait a few seconds and then I jump on the left, see, my game crashed, or it froze. That's what can happen when you force load certain rooms. Some rooms will crash if you try and force load them. So usually the best way to load another room is to find the load trigger. If it's not a proximity load, then you want to just basically just walk around the room, touch as much of the collision as you can until the room loads, basically. And you can test it by, you know, shooting behind the door. So that's pretty much it for this video. The next one I'm going to make, the last one, is going to be about how to get back inbounds while you're out of bounds, how to get back into the rooms. So yeah, keep an eye out for that video, and thanks for watching.